Alrighty guys, yeah, Luke here from Regen Farming again. Look, I'm just here with Brad and Brad Collins from Big Springs.
Yep.
And part of what I do with my Regen Farming, my thought process with Regen Farming is it's about regenerating farming soils to regenerate farming families, regenerate farming communities, and regenerate the community health. And a big part of that is mental health. And I've just seen a few things creeping in lately into the space that I think we might need to address with mental health and people saying things that maybe shouldn't be said or how they say things. So I know I'm here actually with Brad to talk about agriculture and his farming system, but knowing what he does as another job, I thought I'd have a bit of a chat to him today about mental health as well. So Brad, can you just sort of give us an idea of who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Sure. Thanks, Luke. So, yeah, Brad Collins. My wife and I run a regenerative farm at Big Springs, about half an hour southeast of Wagga Wagga. We've been on the regenerative track for probably seven years or so, and it's been fantastic. It's a terrific journey that we've been on. In the other part of my life, I'm a chaplain. So I'm a volunteer fire chaplain with the Rural Fire Service. I've been doing that role since 2009 and actually started that role after the Black Saturday bushfires. I just saw the impact that fire had on the health and well-being of crews, and I wanted to do something to give back. In the last 15 months or so, we've been working with the local Murrumbidgee Health District in Wagga, offering support to staff in our hospitals in the region. So that's chaplaincy support. So most of that is dealing with people who just need a safe place to talk, and we all need that. So dealing with people on not just their mental health, but also family relationships, workplace stresses, you name it. We're talking to people about it.
Yeah, righto. Yeah. So Brad, what would be probably the most common things that you come across in that role? So what are the things that people are struggling with the most? You think?
What probably there's the two main most common forms of mental health that we see. Number one is anxiety, and the next is depression. As a community wide, they're the two major depressive conditions that we come up against. Anxiety is really very, very common, and it's actually a really normal thing to get anxious. It's part of our fight or flight response. It's when that becomes paralysing that it becomes something you probably need to look at addressing. And depression, obviously, we all hear about depression. I think anyone living in rural New South Wales knows that would be able to identify someone straight away that unfortunately has taken their own life. It's not something that anyone wants to see, but it's more and more common, and it's becoming more common every single day. So it's a really pertinent time to have the conversation around dealing with mental health and how do we get to that place of wellness within ourselves.
Yeah, yep, righto. So, look, I know I suffer at times with different things, and I struggle, and I've sort of learned how to recognise what those struggles are, and I can go off and have a chat to my horse or whatever it is that makes me feel a bit better. But how would someone recognise it, like start to see those signs in themselves or in a family member or a friend or something like that? What are the signs that we should look for or recognise that someone's struggling?
Yeah, and I'm sympathetic because I too suffer from mental health problems at times. I think if you are honest with yourself, we all have times where we get down. We all have times where we might get anxious, and for some of us this might be a hereditary condition. Some of us it might be a situational depression or anxiety just brought on by a specific set of circumstances. And for me, I do at times suffer from situational depression. So One of the things that for me that works is being able to identify what triggers my response. So I've learned that over the years that I just need to identify that this situation is likely to drag me down to a place I don't really want to go. And between my wife and I these days, we're actually really good at identifying when I'm slipping down a path I don't want to go and addressing it really quickly, and the bounce back's quite quick. So once upon a time I might have sat on the lounge for 3 months, and I might have had suicidal ideation and thought about harming myself. But these days it might be a week or 2 weeks where I'm a bit flat, but I recognise it and I bounce myself back out of it. But if you know someone or you yourself is suffering from depression or anxiety, I think the first thing to do is just be honest with yourself. Recognise that actually you are flat and there's something going on. And you know what? It's okay, because we're human. We all have times when we're that way. When it becomes an issue is when it keeps on going and it gets deeper and worse, and you get so far into your own head that it's very, very hard to get out of it. I think we can all fake it for a while, but there'll come a point where you can't fake it anymore. And if you've got a family member or a friend out there and you can identify that they've changed, that there's something going on with them, I think just with love you can be really honest and just say, hey, I can see that you're struggling. Is there anything I can do to help you? Do you want me to make an appointment with the GP? Do you want to just have a cup of tea or go for a walk or whatever it is that you think might help? I'd encourage you just to reach out, because community is the best way of acknowledging it and also dealing with it.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to that. I took myself off and did have done the mental health first aid, and I think every agronomist, every stocky, every bank manager, doesn't matter who it is.
This is the work from it, so I highly recommend go and do the mental health first aid course if you can.
Yeah. And I found that helped me a lot in the way I could talk to people, because we are in an industry, let's face it, that is pretty high stress at times. I don't know whether people know the numbers, but in the agricultural industry, if you work in that, you're as much as twice as likely to harm yourself. And I think we shouldn't be like that. I think that's the whole idea of regenerative farming to me is fixing all of those issues. It's not just about the farm; it's about everything.
And I think too, I don't think we should sugarcoat it. When we say harm yourself, we're talking about ending your life. Okay, and one thing I'd love to do, I've dealt with, unfortunately, I've dealt with people that have taken their own life, and what I wish I could do with those people is take them to their own funeral. Take them to their own funeral, and then they can see how much they were loved, how much they're missed, how much they were valued. Because when you're in that headspace, you can't actually see it anymore. You stop seeing it, and you stop believing that anyone could think anything good about you, because you don't see the value in yourself. So when you think you've got someone that's like that in your world, just be a little bit bold and just say to them, hey, I can see that you're struggling. Is there something I can do to help? And they'll probably say no, but that's okay. Then just ask them a simple question. Have you thought about hurting yourself? Now, my experience is that people answer this question honestly. And I do have people regularly say to me, well, actually, yeah, I have. And recent surveys have found that people thinking about suicide is far, far more common than they've ever realised. It's actually more common to think about suicide than not to think about suicide. So it's actually a really common behaviour that's in our society. So just be brave. And if it's you, like you could be sitting here watching this video thinking, oh crap, I've actually thought about that. I was driving down the road the other day and I was picking out trees, to drive into, or whatever it might be. Let me tell you that there is there's an answer, and there is a better way. And for most of us, some people do have really significant mental health conditions that need specialised treatment, and I think that I do go and see a psych regularly. I do that as part of my role as supervision. But there have been times in my life where I've gone just because I needed to see a psych because I wasn't coping. And that is so okay to reach out and get help. I found it to be invaluable in my own life journey. So don't be afraid to reach out and get that help. You've got to be a bit brave, and you've got to acknowledge that, okay, I'm not coping, but it's okay, because all that means is that you're actually human, because we all go through this at times. It's not unique to you. We all go through it. And it's interesting, sometimes the people that you think have got it all together are the ones that are just better at covering it up, and they could be in an even deeper hole than you are, and you just don't know it. So just be brave. And look, if you have a loved one or a friend that you can identify that they might need some help, try and walk that journey out with them. The worst thing you can do is just say, oh, get over it, you'll be right. There is help out there where you can actually play a really important role in turning that person's life around. And sometimes it might be, hey, would you like me to come to the doctor with you?
Pretty simple.
Pretty simple. Or it might be, hey, let's jump on the Beyond Blue website and we'll fill out the mental health survey and we'll just see where you're at. See how you're feeling. There's some really terrific tools out there to help identify where you're at, and the support services that are there. Because let me tell you, there is a massive amount of support services out there for mental health conditions. So, even remotely, you can do something, whether it's on a phone or a laptop or whatever. You don't need to be face to face.
Also, Brad, I think like as a society, we've made ourselves want to be tough and strong and things like that. And look, I know my mates, if I was to really be struggling, and I didn't think this before, but now that I've looked at it a bit closer, I know that I could go to any of my friends or my wife or someone like that and just just say something to them, and that would be like, that just starts the process.
Yep, absolutely. I think that it's easy for me because I've been doing it for a long time, but when you can be vulnerable and just say, I'm actually not coping, or I'm struggling, or whatever it is you need to say. But when you can be that little bit vulnerable, you'll find that there are people there, and sometimes they're the most unlikely people in the world who you never would have thought of, that will step up and walk that journey with you.
Yeah.
So do not be afraid to reach out for help. And you know what? Even if you are too shy or embarrassed or alone to reach out to someone face to face, you can do it either by ringing Lifeline, or you can, like I said, you can jump on. There's numerous websites. The Beyond Blue's one that I've looked at quite a bit over the years, and it's got some terrific tools on there. So you can even do it anonymously and start the process. But I highly recommend, if you're thinking that maybe you're there, go and see your GP. They'll help you set up a mental health plan, and it's amazing how quickly something can turn around when you acknowledge it and you start to address it.
Yeah, for sure. So I just want to touch on probably the reason I actually I came and wanted to talk to you about this was social media. And I know we're big adults and we should be able to cope and all these sorts of things, but I've just noticed over the last 12 or 18 months, especially in some of the regenerative sites or Facebook pages and things like that, people are having a bit of a crack at each other. And we're in a tough enough environment as it is in an agricultural, as a farmer or in the industry. And I believe that we should be all supporting each other, not having a go at someone because they're using a bit of glyphosate or they've had a pesticide or whatever and jump on them. And words really hurt. Like they can really cut at someone. So how do we get around that?
Look, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I actually find that most people in the regen community are really passionate about
what they're doing.
our environment.
Yeah.
So whether that's our soils, grasses, our people, our animals, there's a high amount of passion and desire to see systems thrive. But humans can be bits of buggers, can't we? And we can be really hard on each other, especially from the safety of a keyboard. There's a degree of anonymity there.
Yeah.
You can hide behind a screen, can't you? So certainly, I've seen it. I've seen it in our community. I've seen it on social media, and certainly I'm seeing it at the moment, particularly around coronavirus vaccines. So people can be really harsh and nasty with their words. We all need to have a degree of responsibility for what our words are, and the reality is that you need to recognise that when you say something, just because it's your opinion, A, it doesn't mean it's right, and B, do you need to say it, and C, how is it going to affect the other person on the other end? Are you building them up or are you tearing them down? Just because they have a different opinion to what you do, or even if they're out and out wrong, does that mean that you get to crucify them on the social media pages? And the simple answer is no, you don't. We're all accountable for our own words, our actions, and I think that there needs to be a level of self-reflection where we need to recognise that maybe our behaviour, if we've been one of those people that's been hurtful and negative, we need to have the ability to recognise that and to deal with it and address it. And whether that's an apology or whether it's I'm not going to do that again or I'm going to pull back, or we don't have to comment. You don't have to like or dislike, and you don't have to respond to everything you don't like. Because I tell you what, we are all different. We've all got different ways of going about things, and I think one of the things that I suppose from the regenerative community, we're all heading in the direction. Some of us might go over that way and come back around, and some of us might go this way, and some of us are just going straight down the middle. No two ways are going to be identical, and that's okay. It's about direction. So we don't need to tear each other down. I think we've got to build each other up. And look, do you know what? Sometimes they're going to do something you're going to say, what are they doing that for? Why are they using that spray? But if it's achieving an outcome and a year or two down the track, you can actually see really great success through that, hey, I'm going to learn from them. I can learn something from this too. So I think that we just need to sit on our hands a little bit sometimes and just say, okay, I'm just going to watch. Okay, I don't agree with what they've said or what they're doing, but okay, that's their journey. It's their decision. The consequences are theirs. So I think that we just need to sometimes just take a step back and recognise that if we are going to be, if you've got some criticism, don't make it personal. It can be really constructive, and it doesn't need to say you're wrong. It's more like, have you thought about doing this? Or have you thought about doing this? We could do it this way. Or we tried this on our farm and we found it really worked. Rather than saying, you're an idiot. What are you doing? It doesn't need to be that way. So a bit of maturity would be great, and just a bit of self-reflection that, okay, I don't need to respond that way.
Yeah. I did see a meme on Facebook the other day, actually, and I thought it was a cracker. They said, it doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong, but if you're kind about it, you will always be right. That's the right thing to do. So
I think that you and I were talking earlier about agriculture rather than agribusiness,
yeah.
and the culture. What sort of culture do we want to live in and work in? What sort of business do we want to have? Is it? And I think agriculture, we want to have a healthy culture. And healthy culture is one where you can actually have some really tough discussions and make tough decisions through relationship that are healthy ones. It doesn't need to be a really negative space, and it doesn't need to be confrontational and abusive. You can have really tough conversations with people, but when it comes from a place of relationship, they work, and you're much more likely to get a better outcome.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Righto. So I suppose, Brad, like if someone's sitting at home and they're watching this and they know of someone or they've been in that space, we'll just go over it again because I just want to make sure people know that there's places to go, there's people to talk to, whether it be their wife, their friend, or one of the websites, or whatever. We just run through again some of those options.
Yeah, sure. Look, if you think that you might be suffering from a mental health condition, it might just be, you might have heard some things in today's little video chat and you think, oh, maybe I need to check this out. Look, there are some terrific tools out there. So I've mentioned Beyond Blue. They've got a terrific website and it's very easy to use. So you can do a mental health assessment there in 5 or 10 minutes. And that's going to give you an idea that, okay, maybe I need some additional help here. And you can do that anonymously. You don't need to tell anyone. But, I hope we all have someone that we can turn to, even if it's an old friend that you haven't spoken to in a fair while. Don't be afraid to reach out and just say, hey, I'm actually having a really tough time. Would you mind if we caught up for a coffee or chat or whatever it might be? One of the things that I'd actually love to see is farmers checking in with their neighbours, and not just checking in, saying, hey, look, I was just wondering, how about we hang out for the day and I'll come and work with you for the day. Imagine the conversations you can have in the ute or the tractor or when you're out fencing or drenching or drafting or whatever with your neighbour, who you may not necessarily have much of a relationship with, but if you build relationship, it leaves space for those conversations and building community. So, but certainly, like getting back on track, Beyond Blue, there's Lifeline. Okay, if you are at a point where you are thinking about harming yourself, you're thinking about taking your life, please, there is this help. Suicide is a permanent response to a temporary problem. So it doesn't need to be that way. You've only got to go to someone who has died by their own hand and see the funeral and see what's said about them to recognise that they were loved and they didn't know it. So there is an answer. One of the things, if I do come across someone that is suffering from quite poor mental health, my first call is always to their GP, or I encourage them to ring their GP, and sometimes I will sit with them and ring their GP, make an appointment, and get a mental health plan. It is the best way to start that journey towards having good mental health. Mental health's a journey. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, and it's about recognising it. When it's good, that's great, but there's always a come off the back end, and you don't have to go all the way down. You can start to head down and just tick it back up and keep yourself on a bit more even keel with the right tools. So it's about, one of the things that a mental health plan will do is give you the tools in your toolbox so that you'll be able to recognise when you're struggling and what to do when you are struggling. So that's just 3 easy ways to identify and start to move yourself on a pathway towards mental health wellness.
Yeah, well, fantastic, Brad. Thanks so much for your time. We've covered a fair bit, and there's so much more we could probably cover. For me, just watch your words, I think, when you're talking to people. If you've got an issue or you feel someone else has, deal with it. Don't run from it. It won't get worse if you don't deal. It won't get better if you don't deal with it.
Absolutely.
And just be kind to each other. It's a pretty simple world, isn't it?
Be kind.
Yeah, pretty simple. Any last things you'd like to say? I was going to apologise for doing this, but I'm going to change my words and say no. I'm not going to apologise. I'm going to say I have just seen in the last 12 or 18 months things sneaking in a lot more. Especially, you're right with the COVID. It's probably got a lot worse. And I just thought it was the discussion that needed to be started, and I thought Brad would be a good one to start it with. So
thanks. Yeah, look, just in closing, look, don't be afraid. If you are suffering from a mental health condition, it just means you're human. There's nothing wrong with you, and it's just like any other illness. You know, if you had a cold, you take some medication for it. If you had a serious illness like cancer, you go and get treatment for it. Mental health's the same thing. It's another illness that it doesn't need to be stigmatized. It's a normal part of being human. It's just about giving you the tools to help deal with it. And sometimes that might be medication. Sometimes it might be therapy. Sometimes it just needs to be acknowledged and you can start the process. So, I think don't be afraid of having it. The days of being afraid of saying I'm suffering from depression are over. Okay? I've been there. Let me tell you, I'm not afraid to talk to anyone about mental health conditions. So please, don't be afraid, be brave.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much for that, Brad. Anyway, that's it for today, I think. I'm really glad if you sat through this whole presentation, whole discussion. Thank you. And it's just so important. Let's bring and put community back into society and just be kind once again. Anyway, thanks for that, guys. Have a great day.